Hello, I'm Dr. Lenore Walker, and I'm chair of the COVID IPV task force, where we are part of the American Psychological Association's COVID task force, where we're trying to get information out both to mental health providers and to the general public about how to deal with the pandemic that we are all living through. It's difficult to believe that it's 1 year as we do this roundtable, that we have been living in lockdown and other kinds of conditions that none of us would have ever anticipated that we would have to have gone through. And we're going through different phases. Many of you know that we are also live on Facebook, 2 Facebook pages. We're live on the COVID IPV group Facebook page, but we also have merged together for our roundtables with the international whole person group that uses whole person approaches to dealing with all kinds of mental health problems, in addition to the COVID, surviving COVID this last year. And with us is also the chair of that group, Dr. Eileen Serlin, who's coming to us from San Francisco. Dr. Gaviria, who you just met, and myself come from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we have Dr. Marilyn Safer, and we have Dr. Eleanor Pardes, both from Israel. We're going to have more people jumping on as right before I introduce our wonderful presenter from Canada. So you can see, this is Lori Gill, and you will see as we introduce different people that we're from all over the world, and that's very exciting, and why we love Zoom and we love Facebook for being able to bring us all of these new and interesting tips. We've got exciting kinds of things planned in the future as well. I want to just say that we are all in sympathy with the shooting, the terrible shooting of so many women in the Asian spas in Atlanta, Georgia. Again, violence that is simply not warranted and not wanted in our community. And it's violence with racial overtones and with gender violence overtones. So we are planning, and maybe we'll have time later to tell you more about it, but we're planning a roundtable that Dr. Serlin will put together so that we can really explore some of these issues, especially since she's in San Francisco, where a lot of Asian violence that's unwanted and unnecessary and should not be part of our lives are taking place. So we're looking for ways to really deal with the racial unrest in our country, in our world, as well as trying to lower the temperature of violence. And so that's a good sort of lead in to Lori Gill's presentation today. She is going to talk about all the fears and tensions and re-entry issues that so many of us have. We're going into new phases of the pandemic, and one where people are getting vaccinated. In fact, 2 of our members got their shots this week, so we're so excited for them. I'll let them tell you who they are, but see if you can guess, those of you who are watching. So I hope you're tuning in to COVID IPV, or the which is live right now, and also live right now on the International Whole Person Approaches Facebook pages. We're group Facebook pages, and so our videos stay on. And for those of you who are watching, if you want to see some of the topics we've covered beforehand, you can go back and look under videos and you'll see some of them. And looking forward, we're putting them up on YouTube, so that'll be another way to access our work. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lori, who's going to help us relax a little bit and get some of that tension down. Thank you, Lori.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Walker, and lovely to see everyone and to be here. I think groups like this are so important, especially when there is so much hurt, trauma, stress occurring in the world around us. We also need to be able to come back to ourselves, come back and take stock, notice what we are feeling, notice the impact that it's having on us, and consider what we can offer ourselves. So I have a bit of an experiential activity planned, possibly two, depending on the time. But I'm going to invite you just to take a moment to get some art materials if you have anything nearby, even a blank piece of paper, pencil crayons, pen, marker, whatever you have handy, even a pencil. But if you have something, just take a moment. I think this ties in nicely with our topic of just kind of taking stock a little bit. I want to give anybody at home a moment to do that as well. All right, wonderful. So what I'm going to do is just kind of highlight, we know that taking time to notice what we're feeling and reflecting on that has a very healing effect on the brain, the nervous system, and the body. A lot of times we're very conscious and aware of the pain, the fear, the anxiety, but we're not tuning into where we're feeling that, noticing it, naming it, allowing it to be there. I think it's really important to acknowledge the circumstances as they are. This has been a year that has just been a whirlwind for so many people. It's been a year filled with uncertainty, with isolation, with increased fear and emotions. It's been a year of increased violence occurring in so many ways, and it's heartbreaking to see that. When we experience stuff like that, and we kind of push it down or stuff it, as my good friend Anne Marie says, unfortunately, those feelings tend to build and take up space in our body, and we start having physical or somatic reactions to that. So we want to just be able to pause and notice. And I find this is a really helpful activity that um, provides some validation for self, but also attunement to our body, which increases integration. So this is an expansion of the notice it, name it, allow it, nurture it that you've heard me talk about, but we're going to break it up a little bit. So I'm going to invite you, and everyone works at their own pace. So if you finish before somebody else, that's okay. Maybe just pause, take a couple of breaths. I'm going to kind of gauge the group and then regroup when most people seem to have finished. So at any point in time, if you're done before someone else, take a stretch, right? You can stand just nearby, do whatever you need to do to tend to you, a couple of extra nice, slow, deep breaths. But we'll start with that. We'll start with a nice, slow, deep tummy breath. I like to put my feet on the ground, relax back into my chair, and take a nice diaphragmatic belly breath all the way down to the belly. Nice slow inhale. And as you breathe it out, maybe just try sighing it out. Yeah. We'll try maybe one more of those. So just nice slow deep breath in all the way to the belly. And just noticing the releasing, right? Same with your shoulders, maybe pausing and noticing and just releasing down any unnecessary bracing that's happening there, dropping that down. And I just invite you, with your eyes open or closed, however you prefer, to reflect on the past year for you. Reflect on what stands out for you as, significant, positive, perhaps changes that have happened, negative things that kind of have come to mind for you. Um, the pandemic has forced, I think, all of us to take stock in our lives and be more aware of what's important to us, what we miss, right? Things that perhaps we took for granted before, but it also has provided us opportunities for growth and enrichment and self-care. So just pausing for a minute and really just noticing what comes up for you. And if there was an image you could create to represent whatever comes to mind, like that culmination of this past year, I'm going to invite you to create some kind of image to represent that. Does not matter what it looks like. This is about the process, not the product. I know everyone works at their own pace, so I'm going to put some prompts in the chat box that you can use if you're done and ready for the next step, because we'll kind of layer or build on this. So the next step, and if you're not there yet, don't worry, get there when you're ready. If you're watching this later, even you can press pause. But step two would be just to really name it, right? What has the past year been like for you? Notice the feelings that are there and maybe add the feelings or anything else on there that you want to add. And I'm going to tell you each of the steps just so you've got them. Step three would be just allowing it to be there. So if there's tension, if there's anxiety, if there's joy, whatever it is, breathe through it, allow it to be there. And then the last step is to nurture it. What is needed when you're feeling this way? What can you offer yourself emotionally, physically, relationally? So just at your own pace, they're all in the chat box. So you can respond to that when you're ready, and we'll come back as a group when everyone's done. How are we doing? Does anybody need a few more minutes? It's harder to tell with Zoom. Usually I can see your hands and your drawing materials. Is anyone comfortable sharing, just reflecting on that, pausing for a moment to just take notice? What did you notice as you reflect on the past year? What were you feeling? And what would be helpful for you moving forward or in this moment even? Yeah, go ahead, Eric. Thanks. Oh, I think you're muted.
You're right. There are many different pieces that come up. I think the biggest question was almost like I almost do like a question mark, and it's really asking the question, what it brought for me was, what is the purpose? In a sense, you have more time to reflect on yourself, or reflecting just because you're less busy running around. And so all of a sudden saying, what is meaning? Where do I want to go? And those kind of questions came up, in terms of again, almost existential kind of questions. I think that's one. The pragmatic ones are more of a stronger connection with family, the loss of friendships in a sense, or the sense of some loneliness. And the other part, I think the loss of travel, I would say, and not having jet lag for the first time in 30 years. That was also a benefit, by the way. But I think the real meaning, deep question was really, what do I want to spend my life doing? From an intrinsic one, not an extrinsic side. And that, I think, that's what is both accepting that question, knowing the answer may not be there, and realizing, which I do think I know, that what I wrote down is the universe is a friendly place. And if I take that as a premise, then I can stay with the uncertainty and unknowingness.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a beautiful reminder, right? Sometimes especially right now where we have limited exposure to other elements of our life that may balance things out, but maybe we're watching lots of the news, so we're hearing lots of the bad things that are happening in the world. We're not getting that counterbalance to view the world as a friendly place, or to recognize that this is part of the world, right? Not all of it as a whole. Yeah, I'm curious if anybody else wants to share anything, because I know we all have very different experiences. So yeah,
Yeah,
Eileen.
I'll be glad. The first thing I took I made this kind of envelope with a blank paper, and a sealed envelope, and I thought the whole, like, feeling the uncertainty of what is in this envelope for me. All during COVID, like, there is a message there, there is something there, but I don't know what it is. It's it's inside the envelope, and, I can't figure it out. And I really don't know. And I try to understand, and I look at it again, and, I brought all these crayons and I didn't use them. It was left blank, and it's still blank. Yes. And, so then you said about, nurturing what is needed when you're feeling this way. And it occurred to me that probably I need communication and connection to break through isolation only afterwards. But, it's blank. But I suppose that connection is, for me, that's the basic answer, that what I can offer myself and others emotionally. And that was a really, it was nice to discover that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And can you offer yourself that? I think for some people, there's been a lot more of a return to writing letters, right? And just different ways that we're communicating with people. Thank you for sharing.
For me, it's been the sense of time distortion.
Yes.
I really have no anchor on which to base how much time has been spent on anything. When they say a year, it feels like it was yesterday that we were locked down. And yet, on the other hand, when I think about how much I miss family and friends, it seems forever. So the idea that we have any sense of how much more time is left. When the vaccines came out, I was all excited that it was all of a sudden going to be over. Of course, I still am optimistic about it, but I realize that it's going to take more time, and I don't know how to measure what that more time means. Yeah. So that's a big uncertainty that I never ever had before. And I don't know how quite to fill that. In my drawing, I drew our little puppy that we got because that was such a big thing for us this year. And then I was drawing my husband and myself, and I noticed the size difference that the puppy does take up so much more time than we ever thought she would. And I just thought how funny it all sort of fit together.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I think a lot of people have been taking stock and, inviting pets or loved ones into their lives in different ways. I do want to mention, and I know, Eileen, you had offered to share as well, so that's wonderful. We'll come to you in just a second. The time distortion, I think, is something to be mindful of, especially when we're looking at people who are marginalized or vulnerable, or maybe in kind of unhealthy situations. We want to be mindful that for Eric, he's having extra time. For others, it feels like this is really dragging out, in a painful and overwhelming way. For me, I've never been busier, and I don't like it. I don't like this level of busyness, but from a mental health perspective, the needs are really, really great right now. And the idea behind this is just what you're doing, noticing it, naming it, allowing it to be there, but then considering, okay, what do I need? What can I offer myself, right? And it may even be just permission to say, wow, I just heard this atrocious stuff in the world happened, right? We notice it, we name it. How did that feel for us? What do I need when I feel that way? Permission, perhaps, to feel this way, because that's hard. It's hard to hear, or that's not the view I hold of the world. And those simple pauses of noticing, like I said, are so deeply nourishing for ourselves, because it's integrative. It's connecting our body with our emotions, with our thoughts. It's a way of saying to ourselves, I hear what's there. It's okay. I notice the tension. I notice the sadness. I notice whatever it is, and just allowing for that and then tending to it. So yeah, Eileen, did you have something you wanted to add before we move forward?
Oh,
Or share,
actually,
sorry.
I can, it's a cave. It's a little cave filled with, I can't do right or left on the opposite, snuggly things, and a lot of green outside, but green inside. And I wrote home and snug and safe and cozy. And I think it's given me an unexpected benefit of slowing down.
Beautiful,
And
beautiful.
I think, and really nesting, noticing things in the home, cutting dead leaves off plants, time to do that. And I think the uncertainty is the reemergence. I feel like I'm creeping out of a cave, kind of looking around. The world has changed a lot. Stores are boarded up. Things are unfamiliar. And I sort of, I can't wait to get out, but I want to stay snug in the cave where I'm feeling safe finally.
Yes, yes, beautiful. So that's going to bring us to the next part of our exercise. And what I'm going to invite you to do for this is just to take a moment and imagine the future, right? Coming out of this. What is your wish, or your intention, or your prayer, or your hope for the world, for yourself, for the community around you, for your world? When you think about kind of moving out of this, there's been a message of we're all in this together, right? That's been shared throughout the pandemic. And for some, that's felt very true. I think as helpers, we've come together really, really beautifully to share resources and to support one another in a way that I personally have not ever experienced. And it's been really wonderful. But you as an individual, what is your wish or prayer or hope or intention for yourself coming out of this? Where do you want to see yourself? What wisdom can you take with you? What messages can you send yourself? But also, what wish or prayer or intention or hope do you have for your community and the world? And just take a moment and reflect on that a little bit. Maybe make another little drawing and add some of those elements, and I'll put them in the chat box. And again, everyone's working at their own pace, but if you're done, maybe closing your eyes, breathing into that wish for yourself. You can bilaterally tap it in either on your sides or your shoulders if you want to, or you can just breathe into it, put your hand on your heart, and just maybe imagine offering your wish or prayer or hope or intention to yourself, or seeing yourself in the future, kind of living out life the way that you would like to see it occurring, and sending that wish, that hope, that prayer out to your community, to the world around you as well. And just bringing your awareness back to the room, and just pausing and noticing whenever you're ready. What was that like for you? Is anyone comfortable sharing? How does your body feel if you tune into your body? What do you notice emotionally? What do you notice physically? What do you notice if you tune into your heart? Yeah, please, Katie.
I notice that when I think of connecting with others and wishing others well, that gives a feeling of opening and gives a feeling of a bit more peace, not feeling so isolated, but imagining how everybody has in some form or another been through a shared experience, although everyone's experienced something in a completely different way. But I think there's something in, I drew a Venn diagram. I think there's something in it that we can all share and therefore have hopefully more understanding and acceptance of each other in some way or another.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I think too, it's important to highlight that when we picture ourselves with others or extending kindness to others or wishes to others, our brain, the research has shown us, doesn't differentiate us physically being with someone or visualizing it. So I know it's not the same, but that's the cognitive part of your brain that's getting in the way, that's saying, yeah, but. So what we want to do is just kind of invite that part to scoot and allow our body to receive it, because again, we're nourishing and validating and allowing for what we need. And yes, it's a different way. And yes, it's not the way we would like it, but that's part of taking control of the things that we can control, working around the things that we can't control. So, and we can visualize our loved ones, right? Or extend wishes to them. Michaela.
So Lori, I was actually, what I was thinking about during this time was what came to mind was the serenity prayer. And about kind of just what you're saying about kind of acceptance and change, and just how this has been such an exercise in kind of facing something that we have very, at some level, have very little control over, and having to accept a lot of the losses and changes and aspects of it. And yet also having to look very hard at what are the parts of our experience that we can control, what are the things that we can offer other people. So that's kind of where my mind was going through all of that. And that's something I'd like to be able to take with me kind of as we move kind of through this, is that sense of being able to have that acceptance, and yet also feel like I do have some kind of sense of agency over my experience and how I take care of myself and how I take care of others. And
yeah, and that's beautiful, and that always comes to mind for me. And regardless of your faith base, it's a good reference point to come back to: what can I control? What is outside of my control? Right? And having the wisdom to know the difference between the two and recognize that's not mine. This is mine. So there is a lot happening, right? But again, our energy, our response to it, the impact we let it have on us is ours. And unfortunately, if we're just watching the news and listening to stuff that's happening and we're not conscious or cognizant of the impact it's having, our systems may be revving higher than they need to be revving without us resetting them, right? And if we're in a state of negativity where we're focused on pain or suffering or chaos, and I'm not saying, sometimes this is our reality, right? And we can acknowledge it, absolutely acknowledge it, but what is it that I can control or change? How in this moment can I give myself breath? How in this moment can I shift what I'm feeling? How can I move towards where I want to be, right? By maybe refocusing on strength or empowerment or gratitude or the things that I am thankful for. Because ultimately, you're helping yourself when you do that, because you're shifting what's happening physiologically, you're shifting what's happening at a cell biology level and a neurological level. And I've got to think that globally, the more of us that are feeling hope, the more we'll feel that through the world as well. Because we are interconnected and we are energetic beings, and we pick up on the stress and the anxiety that's being felt everywhere. But if we're focusing on our own healing and groundedness and hope, that also is felt by others. So Eric, I think you wanted to add something, or did you wave a little while back?
Well, I think for me, as I sat here, I think what I realize is, and that's partly a mixture between the pandemic and our political system, so they're intertwined, how our lives are for me, is the recognition that if I have a wish, it is that each of us thinks of the common good, and that's so often missing. The wishing that we have a kind of us be your brothers, sisters, keepers in a sense. And my dream is that all of us can let go of some of our own needs or own, narrow-mindedness and say, gosh, I'm willing to work for the common good. And that part I see is so missing at times. And so that's my dream. But it also says that maybe, and I'm thinking about it more, it has started me to think I need to become more politically active. So it's not just good enough to talk, but I need to move into action.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Eileen.
Well, I just want to add on to Eric, because mine was much like that. And I'm looking at Hattie, who, what came to mind was an image from her presentation last week, I guess it was, of hands reaching, the image I had of hands reaching across the ocean. And there's a whole new, it's kind of thrilling how easy it is to have all these international friends. And I actually did a hand dance, which maybe we'll do with my colleague from China, where you can actually feel. So that image of just hands reaching, and Hattie, I'm thinking of the one you did of the girls, I think their hands just reaching across the ocean. Much like Eric, I think that we can somehow learn how to be good neighbors and steward our planet in a peaceful way, and understand we're more alike than we are different. Yeah.
And holding and supporting one another through these challenges, right? Recognizing that everybody has struggled in some way, shape, or form through this, and allowing for that, acknowledging that. There was another optional activity I was going to do, and I'll pop it in the chat box because it's something that needs a little more time, and I think over my time. But there's a what's called a Me Tree Adapted, and I also thought of the loving kindness meditation. So there's a metta meditation that's quite common. I really love Elisha Goldstein's version of it, but there's lots out there. But for the art activity, the idea would be to draw a tree. So usually I just give people the prompt to draw a tree with roots, a trunk, branches reaching for something, a hole in the center with something hiding away, and leaves falling down. And I've adapted it a little bit with questions more specific to the pandemic. So after we draw our tree, we can add in some of the questions. So what have you discovered, right, for your roots about what nourishes you? What helps you to stand tall and grounded? That would be the trunk. right? But still allows us to bend with the wind and be flexible. What are we reaching for? What are your hopes, dreams, goals, wishes moving forward, right? The hole in the center, what are you hiding away or what are you holding on to? And the leaves falling down, what do you need to let go of or let release because it's no longer serving you?
Lori, I would like to share also, following your creative activity, what came out of the envelope is, I found it on the table, but I saw it's a flower, and I was thinking about the spring, and also there are a lot of thorns there, like a cactus, okay, if you can see closely. And I was thinking about the, growth and adversity, and that truths and roses have thorns about them, and both truths and roses, and that's Thoreau. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. If I put it on the chat, but I was thinking about our ability to care and not numb ourselves, because I think there is a real temptation to look the other way, to ignore. We were talking about violence before, and about discrimination and disparities, and so large numbers of deaths and people ill and struggling, and places we heard about Uganda without any vaccination, and other parts of the world. So really, if we are able to look the eye, because I'm really concerned about how ignoring or turning the other way stifles our need for connection and numbs us in a way that we don't see the truth. And we still don't know what the empty envelope and the truth are. I don't anyway. But but the search for that, I think it's part, and the search for the meaning and the ability to engage with distress instead of disconnecting is part of our being interconnected and feeling really part of this web of life. And I think that for me, the answer was when you asked me, what do I do instead of writing letters? So I Facebook with you. I'm here connecting and sharing with you, and that's probably the best answer I have as yet.
I love that, because one of the things I was thinking about was how much gratitude I have for Facebook. These roundtables that we have been doing every week have made me feel like I have a new family of choice, of good friends, and I just want to add to introductions for the people who jumped on. We started a bit early, so we have some people who jumped on. Eric Pepper, who came to us from California, who jumped on, and Hattie, who came to us from London. We're so pleased to have her with us. And Patricia Villavicencio came to us from Madrid, Spain, and Michaela from Boston. So we are such a wonderful group of people who continue to have new people joining us, and as well as people who are familiar, who are with us and manage to be with us every week. So that for me has been one of the biggest joys I think I've had, and to know that our roundtables are being watched by so many people, as our process this week of trying to put them onto a YouTube channel. Giselle was able to find how many people watch each of these roundtables, even when they're not live, when they're in recording. And I think one of them had 679 views as of last week. So people are using them, and that's just makes me feel good. And I think it must make all of us feel so good that we are all volunteering our time as psychologists and mental health workers and creative arts experts to really share what we learn, what we know, what we've been experiencing, to make this worthwhile for people. So I just wanted to put that out for us all to think about.
May I say something? Sorry for arriving late. I forgot the time difference because you just did the change, right? So what time? I don't know. So it's 1 hour earlier for me. I don't know when.
Yes, we're sorry about that. That's all right.
I'm so sorry. Then I
We need
realized-
Eric as a politician to change that, Eric.
We have to, and I want to ask to something that Eric said about being more political. And I think everything what we do is politics. Even what we're doing right now is politics, like a positive politics, volunteering our time. And I think we're a real model to other colleagues around the world. And I wish, and my wish, I believe in, it's not a kind of faith, but I believe in humankind as a species, sapiens, that we, if we are, what Lori said, if we are together in, and you have said that in another time, Eric, and if you join this energy, and the energy is the knowledge that we're sharing and our time, and I'm really so happy to be part of this group, Eleanor, and everyone in this group and the other groups that I'm taking part in. And I think it's coming out something beautiful, that if the good people join, I think we do something change. We do a change in the minds of others, and this is what we need right now. It's, and every time we need to get together, people that we believe in change and in mental health. A few half an hour ago, a new client, possible new client, called me, and she said that she doesn't believe anymore in psychology, and I felt sorry for her. I don't know. I say, I don't know what you have been doing, but it's not a matter of believing. It's a matter of what it works. And of course, trauma victims sometimes go to general psychologists and psychotherapists, and you must have the chance to know as a future patient or a patient that there are specific treatments for trauma that work, and there's not only one. And most of us know most of the most empirical and non-empirical tools to heal. And it's not a matter of believing, it's a matter that it works. And that's why all of us are here, to give our knowledge and tools to people that have suffered and still suffer from trauma. Thank you.
If I can say, Patricia, what I really liked about you, I'm thinking about as I'm listening to you, how many people I hear talk about a feeling of hopelessness, that things are so big and so out of our control. What can one person do to make a difference? And that's not a good feeling to live with. And just as you said, just to realize that there's ripple effects. We can measure the impact of what we're doing maybe by how many people are on FaceTime. But I think even more than that, we don't know. We're making new friends. Those friends are making other friends, bringing them onto this conversations together. So yes, it's kind of to have faith that there's a ripple effect and things that can't be measured necessarily, but that it will continue, that every little bit adds to something else. Yeah. Thank you.
it feels like the old adage, you can look at a glass half full or you can look at it half empty. Both are true, like Eleanor was saying about truth. But if we look at it as half full, that tells us that we have at least some faith, some belief in Eric's better world, that the world is a good place to be. For many people, it hasn't necessarily been such a good world, especially for those people who are have been living with trauma. And for many of us, you know, we wanted to talk a little bit about reentry. How do we leave our Eileen's beautiful, warm, fuzzy cave that she drew with some support? Obviously, we must have support to be able to do it, but maybe we have to think about the little steps that we take. And we always look back at the grounding. We've used trees and nature as images over time, but the grounding of roots is one that's very important. As long as we can find a way to feel somewhat grounded, those wavy leaves and branches will be okay. So some images that we really need to keep in our mind. And that's part of what we do here, is to try to learn these new images and how old images, how to apply them to new situations. Many of us need to help our clients get through these difficult times to re-enter into what hasn't always been a safe world. Marilyn, I think you wanted to say something.
I was trying to think about the situation, you know, in terms of my changes and emotions in the beginning, being in the elder groups that was, you know, put as being most in danger, and people sort of trying to say, you know, stay in, don't. I felt kind of angry. I mean, you mentioned your puppy. Having my dog, I mean, we were not supposed to go out of the house. Well, I was going out of the house 4, sometimes even 5 times, just to be able to show that I had some control. It got to the point that my dog didn't want to go out. And now, you know, that we know more about COVID and more about the treatments for it, there's a feeling of relaxation and much more positive, you know, being much more hopeful and seeing the end. At the same time, being angry at people that are not being considerate of the people in their environment by walking around without masks or not keeping social distancing.
I want to share something personal, private with the group, which is, so I am knitting a baby blanket. We have a new grandchild coming this week, next week, very soon. And I want to salute those people who had the courage to fall in love, have babies at a time like this, that this whole season of new birth takes such courage to go on. And although there were lots of problems with, I know, violence and divorces and conflicts, the other way is a lot of people really did well together, and couples learned to get along, and people really learned what it was to be with family and have the faith to bring new life into this world. So I just want to take a moment and salute all of those. Life is going on, lockdown, no lockdown, and that takes courage. So here's to springtime and new life. Equinox is coming soon, where night and day will be perfectly in balance. And I would like to bring balance back into this as we move forward as well, and more balanced. And finally, some sanity into the world. I'm not asking for happiness. Hope is important, but settled for some sanity as we move forward. good, grounded, clear thinking and compassion and sanity. There's been enough craziness, I think, for all of us being upside down for so much of the year.
I want to add to, and can I quote you, Eileen, because I think today's meeting has really illustrated and highlighted the importance of creative approaches, like Lori using, ways to unlock, and you talked about the key to unlocking jammed doorways on your interview. And I really feel that a lot of, like you said, a lot of people's emotions and ours also are, they're in envelopes, sealed envelopes, and, they're not available to us. So, and we can be numb and moving and creating and finding the expressive ways, like Hattie introduced us last time, and we've done this, is really awaken something and provide some kind of access to those locked resources and creative ways. And if we tap into those resources that Lori introduced, I think we'll be able to, we need a lot of imagination for thinking of the future. A lot of imagination and, envisioning, not just rebuilding the future, but really envisioning, seeing it in our mind. And that's why we need the creativity. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think that's one of the things that that this pandemic has done for many people, has really allowed us to be more creative, because we had to go inside ourselves. We couldn't always go outside and express outside. And we're working very hard with some of the other people in the COVID task force, the larger task force that are working on all different kinds of issues besides the two groups that are working on these roundtables. We have another one of the groups on children and families who have asked if they could come on our roundtable and join with us. So look forward to having some of them talk about what this pandemic has done to the children and to their families, and how can we get beyond it. So look forward to some newer people as well joining us, which I think will be very exciting and expand the creativity. So the book that Eileen and I have been co-editing with Charles Figley, I think is going to make a big change in how psychology is viewed around the world, because we are including the creative approaches as well as the traditional psychological approaches, which doesn't always get done in a volume together. Published by Oxford University Press. So we're very excited that all of you, I know, we're hoping anyhow, that all of you are going to be participating with us in writing, because each of the groups will have its own chapter as well. So just a couple of things to look forward to in the future.
I just wanted to add to the children and families. And again, I'm thinking about my grandchildren, but I think another edge we're on is about the kids going back to school. And there's a huge amount I'm in San Francisco, and in some areas, schools are opening, others they're not. They're on hybrid schedules. There's a lot of confusion and maybe fear of going back to school, where the teachers are getting vaccinated. So, and a lot of conversation about what we've learned about remote learning, what works, what doesn't work, what we need, and the impact it's having on children, the lack of socialization, all those things we've been hearing about. So it's kind of been, in so many ways, lockdown, a huge experiment in remote learning or Amazon shopping or remote, all kinds of new things that's not going to go back to normal.
And that's true around the world, not just in the United States. I have grandchildren in Germany who go to school, then school, there's an outbreak, so they stop going to school and have to do it online. Then they go back to school and they come back again. And they're struggling as well. And in some ways, I forget who it was, maybe Marilyn, who mentioned Hattie Adang talking to us about Uganda. And I was thinking after she told us, well, they don't have the vaccine, but look at all of the natural things that they're doing, that they are really helping their population do, strengthening their immunological system. That's giving us some control. Drinking lemon, they have the access to the lemons, so that's vitamin C and gives us more immune responses. So we can learn a lot from what our sisters and brothers are doing in some of these other countries. We complain about wearing a mask, but they're doing a lot of other things to support themselves, and we need to do a lot of that. I think it's getting close to time. Anybody want to make a couple of concluding remarks before I end this wonderful roundtable?
Hi there. I just wanted to remind everybody that a lot of the comments that were put on Zoom, I actually copied and pasted them onto Facebook, so you can see some of the instructions as well as some of the comments that we have made, as well as I want to encourage everybody to continue to invite other peers, other colleagues, or other individuals who may be interested in participating or viewing our roundtables and our resources as well. I think it's important for us as a community also to invite others within the community. I know that Dr. Walker has been inviting individuals. There's a plus sign and there's just invite. Can't wait to see you for our continuing roundtables. We have some very important roundtables coming up, so stay tuned.
Right, watch the advertisements on Facebook and on your listservs that we send to, so that you can jump on. If you want to watch old videos, we repost some of them, but you also can go to the 2 Facebook pages and look up videos and see if there's a topic that will be of help to you. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody next week. I'm sorry, Eileen, did you want to say something?
I said same time, same day, same Facebook links.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And for those of you who want to continue the conversation with us live on Zoom, send us an email and we'll get you the Zoom number. So we'll say goodbye for now. Have a wonderful week and see you next week.